It's Wednesday afternoon, just after 1. And I'm thinking of my burpee session today and what I had talked about afterwards, where I mentioned freedom. Freedom from, we could say freedom from and put almost anything afterwards. But mainly, in terms of yoga, what we're seeking is freedom from the patterns of the mind. And it's all patterns, every last bit of it. Everything we think is some sort of vibrational pattern that we fall into. We have a pattern for jealousy, we have a pattern for resentment, we have a pattern for depression, for sadness, for joy, for affection, all to varying degrees. And when something triggers that, then we react according to that vibrational pattern. It's not just yogic psychology, it's actually neuroscience that shows how those patterns in the brain work. Uh, that's the thing when we talk about free will, and some people get really upset when I say there's no free will. And they immediately give me examples. Well, I'm deciding to do this. I'm deciding to call you an asshole. How's that for choice? How's that for free will? Um, but you're just reacting. For whatever reason, a button was pushed when someone says there's no free will, and you respond accordingly. Probably every single time someone ever says something like that, you respond the same way instead of giving it a little bit of thought and wondering. I wonder if that's true, especially if you engage in some form of self-inquiry where you ask, well, who would it be that would actually have free will? Or who would it be that would be absent of free will? I'm not saying this is an absolute. There's absolutely no free will. I have no idea. What I'm saying, though, is until we can gain that freedom from those emotional patterns that act through us, then we can't possibly know whether there's free will or not, because we're just being reactionary cogs in an emotional, psycho-emotional machine. The whole point of yoga is to stabilize the mind to the point where you can see. They call it the 5 afflictions, kleshas, that we are stuck in a pattern of aversion, of attraction, of neutrality, and that there's 5 causes for that. Those are the kleshas. The 5 causes are the main one, avidya, which is ignorance, which is another word that people take offense to. However, ignorance doesn't mean stupid, doesn't mean dumb, it doesn't mean anything negative. What it means is simply not knowing, and worse, not knowing that you don't know. There's the issue. That we don't know that we don't know, and yet we react as if we do. So yoga is about gaining that sense of freedom, or regaining that sense of freedom, because it's already there. So we're built open, we're built spacious, having a mind that doesn't cling. When we're born, at first, some say we're a clean slate. Some neuroscience, some psychologists say no, that we are born already with a predetermined sense of those patterns. To some extent, they just deepen as we get older. Again, if we go back to yogic psychology, they might say that it goes back to former lives. You don't need to believe that at all. What you need to believe is we need to wake up from that illusion that we have that type of choice. And we do that just by examining our thoughts, asking ourselves, is this true? Can I absolutely know for certain that this is true? And then if you follow along with Katie Bryan, she's a great teacher. Um, her line of thoughts through her books, we would ask ourselves, who would I be in the absence of this thought? How would I act? That part I absolutely love. Because we can take anything that we deeply believe in and then ask ourselves, who would I be without this belief? How would I act? How would my life unfold? That's freedom. So I titled my burpee video this morning, Freedom from the Story of Burpees and Anything Else. And that's the important issue. Stories that I tell myself with burpees, the stories that I told myself with ultra running, for races, for diet. Before I became a vegan, my story was I was a meat eater. I didn't like vegetables. I only ate a few fruits. I ate a lot of meat. My story was I'm a meat eater. I'm not a vegan. And then eventually my story became I'm a vegetarian, but I'm going to continue eating some dairy products, some eggs, maybe some fish. Eventually my story became vegan. What I'd like to work on now is even getting rid of the vegan story and just eating spontaneously, which for me would still be a plant-based diet free of animal products. Because at a certain point, compassion and empathy spring up. They're no longer a story. They spring up spontaneously from being free, who we are. In our essence, we are empathetic, compassionate beings. But we need to remember. Meditation helps you remember. Yoga helps you remember. Breath work helps you remember. Deep prayer. I think burpees help you remember. Running, for sure, especially being out in nature. Burpees help you remember because they strip you down past the ego. Especially when we start hitting those numbers where we don't know if we can do another rep, and yet somehow we do. The important thing is let go of that story that I pushed myself for one more rep. My body gave out, but my mind said one more rep. Or my mind gave up and my body just kept going. Erase that story. Something just kept going. Mystery, grace, some power continued, carried us along. More reps. Wonderful. And it doesn't need a story. And we're free. If I tell myself that, the story is I'm a busy dad practitioner, or I am a Iron Wolf disciple, or I am a whatever, then I'm seriously limiting myself. By all means, practice the busy dad protocol, because it's a great way to approach burpees. Just don't give yourself that story of I have to adhere to things this way. Same with running. I know plenty of ultra runners who will look at road runners with disdain. 5K, it's not even my warm-up. Or, running on the road, horrible for you. However, 5K and a solid effort is a tough race. I've had harder 5Ks than I've had 24-hour races, for sure. 100% for sure. All depends on how you approach the race, what you want out of it. Going for a fast, hard effort, PR effort 5K is a really difficult thing to do. Staying on your feet for 24 hours isn't always fun. It's not that hard though, honestly. It just takes persistence. There's one thing that I've been gifted with in life. It is, I'd say, 1, inspiration, and 2, persistence. Doing the same thing over and over again. I think anyone who takes even a glimpse at my channel would come away with the expression of, this guy does the same thing every freaking day, which is true. I do. It's weird. I have a very strict routine in almost everything I do, from waking up and getting on my meditation cushion, to my first yoga practice, to that single cup of coffee, to my writing, to my first walk, to my burpees, to my second walk and run, to my second yoga session, to my second meditation session, to coming here, to having a talk on Instagram later. It's almost like it's mapped out. And yet, all of it is pretty spontaneous. I find myself here, 1 o'clock, at my desk, wanting to come on YouTube and have a conversation with you guys. No idea why. I don't care why. It just comes up. So I do it. It might come up where I don't do it. That will be fine too. I won't force myself. I don't force myself to do burpees every day. It's just that natural, spontaneous, joyful event. I mentioned this before. The playwright and author, Somerset Maugham, he wrote The Razor's Edge, one of my all-time favorite books, and it triggered a lifetime of spiritual practice for me. And he was asked by a group of writing students, is it more important to write on schedule or when you're inspired? And his response was, it is always better to write when you are inspired. However, inspiration shows up at my desk every morning at 9 a.m. That's the paradox of spontaneity and creativity. It's the paradox of I'm always inspired to do burpees 8 o'clock in the morning in my basement on my burpee mat. Show up, there you go. Some mornings, I'm not going to lie to you and say it's never a struggle. Some mornings it is, but what's the story of a struggle? Does it necessarily mean what we think it means? Again, I don't know. Find out. Next time you're struggling, dismiss the story of, is this really a struggle? Or is it something other, something different? And what happens if I free myself from that story? What happens if I don't believe it? A lot of times when we talk ourselves out of working out or doing something difficult, if we just let go of that story, we find that we're doing it with a sense of joyfulness, even as the distress or the suffering or the whatever takes place at the same time. Life can be a paradox. Life is a paradox. We can hold two opposing views. We can be free. That's the important message. Only thing, when I think about teaching yoga, it's the only thing I want to teach. Others, as well as myself. Because I get sucked into stories too. I get sucked into, I have to do this today, I have to do this many reps today, I have to run this many miles. Truth is, I don't have to do any of it. And if I remind myself that, then the perfect thing happens. Whatever that perfect thing might be. Alright guys, so it'll be a shorter talk, I think. Because it had a theme. A lot of times my talks don't have a theme, so I wander all over the place. It's good to come in and know I'm going to talk about something in particular, because then I can keep it short. It's also good to come in and not know at all what I'm going to talk about, and then just let mystery do its thing, and the conversation takes place, and it becomes this abstract, expressionist word salad that doesn't even have to have a particular meaning, but it's just fun to find our way through, meander, weave our way through. But today had the theme, and the theme was freedom from the story. If I can think of something to use as a title for that, I will. If not, Who knows? So, all right, guys, I will see you later tomorrow. I believe tomorrow it's going to be Navy SEALs. We'll see. Take care.